I was there 4 years ago.
Did you have to go to that Chalui last place, that museum?
No.
Oh gosh, it's
I flew in, I picked me up from work. We did dinner, and an all-day meeting with the distributor, and then I flew out the next day. So much time to like an all-day event. What's cool though is when you're flying in, the mountain, the range, you know how we're flying right here. Yeah, mountain. You see that. Pretty cool stuff. Airport.
Yeah.
Western City.
Good evening. Would you all please stand with me for the invocation and pledge of allegiance? Father, we gather here this evening to take up the city's business. We pray that you'll be with our city as we go through this. We ask you to be with each member of council and all the people that are here. We ask that you guard our police officers and our firemen, and that you watch over all the soldiers that guard us each and every day. We thank you for your blessings, and we pray that you'll be with us and keep us in your blessings. Amen.
Amen.
If you would, Mr. Leach.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, welcome. On our agenda, on our sign-up sheet this evening, Mr. Greg Frazier.
Good evening. My name is Greg Frazier. I live at 1210 22nd Street. Tonight I'm speaking in favor of repealing the police fee. The biggest argument I've heard so far for repealing the police fee is it takes money away from the police department budget. If you were to repeal it tonight, that would be true. The city would have to make cuts to cover the shortfall caused by repealing the police fee. If you were to repeal it effective 11:59 p.m. on June the 30th, 2019, excuse me, that would not be the case. By the time the 2019-2020 budget goes into effect, the city will have additional revenue from the 1% sales tax and B&O tax generated from the new H&M store and the new Starbucks store. Not to mention the budget carryover from 2018-2019. The budget carryover for 2017-2018 alone was $879,016. How about the money set aside for the mayor's ghost secretary? That's upward of $42,000 to $45,000, including salary, insurance, and employee cost. Another point to consider is that the mayor is always defending the position of economic development director. I'm sure the mayor would be confident in his ability to bring new businesses, which would bring in more sales tax and more B&O tax revenue to help cover the budget shortfall caused by the repealing of the police fee. And I'm also sure there's some fat in the budget that can be trimmed. The police fee only represents 2.3% of the total budget of $9,176,295. I've just presented you with options to cover the budget shortfall. Now let's take a look at how repealing that $48 police fee will help lower income families and senior citizens living on fixed income. That $48 will purchase 27 gallons of milk, or that $48 will purchase 22 packages of beef franks, or that $48 will purchase 28 half gallons of orange juice, or that $48 will purchase 48 ounces or 19 48 ounces jars of peanut butter. That $48 will also purchase 32 loaves of whole wheat bread. I got all these prices from the Aldi ad of August 19th. That same $48 will cover my prescription costs for 6 months. That $48 might not seem like much to you, but that's taking food off the table of less fortunate among us. Surely to goodness you can do something for the citizens of Vienna by repealing this police fee. The city of Vienna has pockets are deep when it comes to spending. But when it comes to giving back, well, it seems to fall on deaf ears. Now listen up. It's time to do the right thing and repeal this police fee. Thank you for your time and attention.
Mr. Nonamaker, you're next.
My name is Darrell Nonamaker. I live at 1409 31st Street in Vienna. And I've got two questions I'd like to ask. Seems like we always do what other cities do. Are we going to put a list out for what streets we're going to pave and when we're going to pave them?
We already have a map with that on that. It was in the bid packet that was submitted. That's how the bid was prepared.
Yeah, okay. Parkersburg puts down a list of their streets they're going to pave and when they're going to pave them. Are we going to do that?
I don't believe we have the schedule yet for when they're going to start, but we will notify everybody so the neighbors will know, so you'll know where to park in your neighborhoods, yes.
Okay. I did notice, here a couple weeks ago when I was going down Grand Central, I seen them standing out in the middle of the road surveying up Grand Central. Are they surveying for the streetscape or what are they surveying for?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know. I seen them and I just thought I would ask.
No, there's a discrepancy on where the boundary line is, and before they actually make their final drawings, they have to determine where that actual boundary line is.
Okay, so we will put a list out for what streets we're going to pave
Yes,
okay.
so you'll know not to park in your driveway that day and get locked in.
Okay, thank you.
Henry?
Henry Sasson, 1307 Greenbaum Hills Drive, Vienna. What I was going to talk today was things that have been talked about here in the last couple meetings, and it deals with the boat ramp. I'm not in favor of it. I'm not against it. Going through, one of the things I'd just like to know is everyone's talking about one location versus another location. And the only thing I was wondering is anybody's really looked at what's it going to cost the city extra every year to be able to have it. Reason I say that is the river floods every year. There's silt buildup. There's work that's going to have to be done. Have we as a city talked to Williamstown or others? Since the last meeting, I took a look at the Williamstown ramp. I went up to Middle Island Creek because they launch up there off the side there to go under the bridge onto the river. I also went up to St. Mary's ramp, and then even up towards my hometown where they have a ramp where they put in a lot bigger boats instead of the smaller ones where you need a crane to be able to pick up and put in. It was up what they called Weir Tech up in that area. So people I talk to always say there's work that's always done. You know, you got the silt buildup from the river, from the flooding. When you buy a new car, everyone says, hey, I got money for a new car. It's like, yeah, well, great. You have insurance, you have gasoline, you have maintenance costs, et cetera, et cetera. So it's nice to have a new toy, but have we looked at all the costs that are going to be associated with that new toy if the city decides to put it in? Something like that.
I've been in contact with the Corps of Engineers. The people that are in charge for us are out of Huntington, West Virginia, and we're waiting on the paperwork. I've FOIA'd all of the information for the boat ramp. With a boat ramp, you're absolutely right. You must install a boat dock and maintain that. So at this point, I do not have that information back. The commander of the Huntington detachment told me that he had several FOIAs in front of mine, and that I would get it as soon as he got down to me in the stack. So I do not have that information yet as far as what requirements the Corps of Engineers does, but honestly, we're a long way away from ever having a boat ramp. We've got studies to do. We've got to find out if that's what the community wants. At that time, we'll determine what the cost will be as best we can, since we've never had one. But right now, we're gathering the paperwork from the proper authority, so we'll know what direction we need to go.
Okay, because I know everyone's talking about the meeting last 2 weeks ago, about, hey, here's a good spot, or the one down on 12th Street or 12th Avenue or whatever that place is. I'm like, everyone needs to do all their homework first, and
Yeah.
that's, you've confirmed.
It's very early in the process.
Okay.
Okay?
Thanks.
Henry, I'm sorry I didn't get to you before the meeting started. You will need a building permit.
Okay.
I did call for you.
Okay.
All right? I'd like to call to order this regular session of the Vienna City Council for August the 23rd, 2018. Let the record reflect that I've taken roll, that all members of council, with the exception of Councilman Bruce Rogers, are present. Having a quorum, we will proceed. Before we actually get into the agenda this evening, I would like to ask for an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. So I'll entertain a motion for an executive session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we go into executive session to discuss a personnel matter. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of going into executive session, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Thank you. Let the record reflect we went into executive session at 7:11.
We have two cities. You got two zoning
We did it all. Brady called him. Yeah, but you know, that's the street. Yeah, it really
See, I said years ago, he said,
Okay, that's how it is. Yeah, we did.
Either party can walk away from it at the time.
Overall, it's really not work, but some roads.
Then you go, yeah, you have to do,
That's right.
agreement on trying to pay.
We didn't have a cap.
People got this agreement on the table.
And we,
A year before to expire, either party has to give each other notice that whether they want to continue it or not. So that way, you go through, and if you're exiting, it gives the other person a chance to look, I got so many, I got a year's notice. We have the same with our towing.
If you wanna go.
So that every year, kind of sublease it out to it'll be used.
Yeah, they got that.
Oh, I thought they said that.
Yeah, but it wasn't like so far away.
all the way.
For them, we would never know it.
That was a long, long, yeah, they never talking about, we were looking at
After you.
That's the one. That's a different manufacturing.
What's going into it? They want to fire empty that place. They knocked out the windows in the Chinese restaurant.
What happened to the Chinese?
After you left them on it, after they
Let the record reflect that we came back into regular session at 7:15. No decisions were made. It was information only. The minutes from the regular council meeting held on August the 9th, 2018 have been printed, posted, and circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? There are no objections, and the minutes will stand approved as posted. Mr. Leach, report of the treasurer.
Yes, Mayor. Received reconciliation fund from Finance Director Amy Roberts dated August 23rd, 2018. I've reviewed the accounts. They appear in order, and the city is financially sound.
Thank you, sir. Moving this evening, first item on our agenda this evening is a discussion on the police fee.
Can we start?
Yes, sir. That'd be great.
Well, obviously this is not a new discussion, and if many of you will recall, the idea, as it relates to the police fee, and the discussion of the reduction of fees, actually goes back a couple years back under the previous administration. And it was generated based on the passage of home rule with the 1% sales tax. At that time, there was kind of a move from council, and what by then I mean in the previous administration, that if the 1% home rule went into effect, then we would look at some ways to cut some fees or taxes, if you will, on the citizens of Vienna. The first thing we looked at after the passage of home rule was the real estate taxes, and we looked at that pretty hard, and I know Amy Roberts worked with me on the numbers and the representative from the tax department, and that didn't work out. Those numbers didn't work out the way we wanted it to, and I understand that. I get it. So we started thinking about, or at least I thought, by now we're into this current administration, And I thought that feeling of looking at continuing to explore the reduction of some fees for the citizens, I thought it had carried over to this administration. I might have been wrong. That's what I thought at that time. So when the rollback of the real estate taxes didn't work out, then we started a discussion on, you know, what else we could do, what other areas we could look at that might work. I'm getting the feeling now, or obviously, unless maybe I misunderstood, that that's probably not the general feeling of council, and that's okay. However, the police fee was one of the options that was brought up to be considered, so that's what we're considering. So we're going to talk about it. Now, I know no one likes to reduce revenue, and I get that as well. However, when we look back and we see, let me go back a little bit further. When we first started talking about this, we didn't know what kind of revenue the 1% home rule was going to generate. And I believe the statement was even made, you know, we need to realize after a good cycle of that revenue of the 1% home rule to see actually what we're looking at. I think we're far enough into it now. We have a pretty good idea. So, since then, we passed an increase in water and sewer that added some additional financial responsibilities to our citizens. We had a slight increase, as I mentioned last council meeting, in the recycling fee, which, I mean, obviously we had to do. I don't have a problem with that. But, you know, we've not really looked at anything other than having this discussion. If there was anything, you know, even on a minimal basis that we can do to cut anything back for the citizens. I've looked at the numbers extensively on the fire fee. Right now, the full rate of the fire fee is $4.05 a month, and seniors pay a reduced rate of $2.02. If we reduce everyone to the $2.02.
Roger, excuse me. The fire fee's been.
I'm sorry, I apologize. The police fee.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. Yeah, we did away with our fire fee in lieu of the county fire fee, which I didn't support either. But anyway, if we reduce the police fee, if we reduce everyone to the $2.02 amount, that we would need to lower the budget number, $110,000. If we're going to continue to raise the same revenue amount that we're currently experiencing right now, to the $215,000, looks like everyone would pay a fee of $3.50 a month. Anyway, so having said that, we've heard in the last few weeks the term fixed income as it relates to senior citizens. You know, I don't know that there's a clear definition on what fixed income is. I think we relate fixed income to senior citizens, and I don't agree with that. I think many times, yes, our senior citizens are on a fixed income, but many times that's a higher income than a lot of our other citizens experience on a regular basis. And I mean, we can argue fixed income all day long. So I'm not comfortable with any particular definition of fixed income. So I say that to say this. You know, I think in my mind, what if anything can we do where we can cut back even somewhat for our citizens? And I know that what we'd be cutting back is not a lot of money for the citizens, but it means a lot of money to the city. I understand that. I get it. that would have the least impact on our budget, that we could make up in lieu of the 1% home rule that we originally started talking about over 2 years ago, and I realize that was under the previous administration. But I think we need to take a serious look at that. And I mean, we need some kind of closure on this. Like I said, it's been kicked around for over 2 years. You know, it may not be tonight, and that's fine. I understand that. It's listed on the agenda as discussion. So, you know, I just, that's kind of, Mayor, where I am on it. So I'm kind of interested in other comments and to see if there was anything we could do. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to your comments and give you just a little more information if I could. I'm going to put a little thing up on the Elmo for a second. If you'll see, is this on? Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at the first line, this is our budget that we passed this year. This is what we'll operate on for the next fiscal year. If you look at the top line, or the first unencumbered, where it says unencumbered balance, you'll see the amount on that is $350,000. That's the projected carryover amount that we put into the budget so that we can have a cushion in case we need to take money to do projects with. Okay? So of that $350,000 right there, if you pull out $215,000 out of that budget, you're going to reduce that down to, you know, $125,000, $135. No, it would be, $135, okay? And so I want you to be aware of that, and I know that the discussion that you said would be to carry this through and let it expire with next year's budget. The problem with that is, as Mr. Skogstad so often pointed out to us, we realize now that we have a problem with an ordinance that's been in effect for 43 years. So it's our duty to do what's right to fix this, all right? So now we're going to fix it one way or the other, because it either has to go away or you have to take that discount out for seniors because, as Mr. Skogstad said, that is an unfair advantage. So one way or the other, we're not going to do it this evening because we don't have a plan yet, but we're going to have to fix the police fee, all right? Now, the thing that I caution you about, more serious than anything, if you look down on this sheet of paper and you see the line that says 1 cent sales tax, all right? The projected sales tax for this year is $3.15 million. You all may not be aware, but the Home Rule Plan is a pilot program. It is not a fixed program. It is only a pilot program. It is a 5-year program which rests June of next year. All right?
Of 19?
Of 19.
Okay.
All right? Now, it's been before the legislature the last 2 years in order to get it made into a permanent program. It is not, it passed the first year and the governor vetoed it. It never made it out of committee last year. Now, if the legislature does not fix home rule and make it a permanent program, that $3.15 million is going to go away on July the 1st. It'll cease to exist. All right? Now, $3.15 million out of a $9 million budget is 1/3. All right? Now, I can guarantee you we're all going to scramble if that happens and we try to balance the budget with $3 million less than what it takes to run the city. The Vienna Police Department budget is the largest department in our city budget. It's approximately $2.1 million to run the police department, and $200,000 of that is a tenth. And it's been said that that money is not designated for the police department. And so I wanted to bring with me this evening a form that is from the state auditor's office. And if you look down in the bottom corner of it here, it clearly states State Auditor's Office, Local Government Services. This is the sheet that our finance department uses to balance our budget, to make sure that our budget's being done properly. And if you'll look at item number 351, you will clearly see police protection fees is there. All right? It is a revenue item that is included in that, but is directly dedicated to the police department. So there it is in black and white. There is no secrets as far as that goes. The police department fee money goes to the police department, and the auditor's office would back that up with the revenue that we have there. So the home rule, that's a problem. It's been an outstanding program for every city that's in the program. There's a lot more to home rule than just the 1 cent sales tax. It has allowed us to customize our ordinances to benefit our city. Some of the things that we put in our home rule ordinance that we would hate to see go away, we've had the ability to buy materials in cooperation with other cities. By buying in bulk quantities, we've been able to get better prices. On the reverse side of that, we've also been able to share those savings with small cities like Williamstown and St. Mary's. In our code enforcement office, one of the things that's changed in there is every time we have a dilapidated building now, in the old days, we used to come out, mow your grass, we'd charge you the fee, and then we put a lien against your property. Under the home rule that we have now, we have the ability to go out and issue a citation to you. Most people never paid the cost when we would go out and mow their grass or whatever. Now with the fine, if you don't fix it, we have the ability to go back and increase the fines so that you will take care of your property and keep our neighborhoods in good shape. One of the other things that we did that's kind of unique in the state of West Virginia is the fact that we customized our ordinance so that if you have a wreck in the city of Vienna and you need a wrecker to come, that every wrecker must have spill containment on their wrecker. That keeps antifreeze, gasoline, oil out of our storm drains. And so, that's one of the things that we're proud of because that's happened. There are other factors in our home rule ordinance, but it's not just about the 1 cent sales tax. It's allowed a lot of cities to do projects. Some of the things that we've done with our 1 cent sales tax is made additional payments to our police pension fund. There's a lot of cities that have a incredible debt in their police pension fund, and we're in excellent shape. We're one of the top ones in the state. And so I hope, and I'm going to do everything that I possibly can in order to see home rule stay in existence. But, Mr. Bibby, I'll tell you right now, if the home rule ordinance does not become a permanent program, it is going to be a major issue for a lot of the cities in West Virginia.
Well, a couple things, Mayor. One thing. I understand that the home rule was a lot more than the 1% sales tax. You mentioned code enforcement and the ability to write citations. We're not writing enough. In fact, I talked to code enforcement today about doing some follow-up on that. We got a problem there, and we'll bring that up at a different meeting. That's for another meeting. What is the procedure and the process now, once we've been accepted for home rule, as it comes down toward the end of this particular life? What do we have to do as a city when we reach that time frame? Is it a reapplication, or is there a different process than what we went through before to do that?
There will be no reapplication. If the state legislature approves the home rule program as a permanent program, we will continue on as we have. I know that I just came back from Morgantown from the Municipal League Conference, and it is going to be the primary focus of every city to try to stress the importance of this. So, unfortunately, the way the legislature works, we won't know until mid-March, early April, because of how the bills process through the legislature, whether or not it's going to happen. So we're going to have to work very diligently to show the state legislature that it is a valued program and we would like to have it continued.
I don't trust the legislature. Surprise. What's the chances of the legislature saying, oh my gosh, wait a minute here. We might have been missing out on something. And they make it a state program as opposed to a program for municipalities. Is that
Always
possible?
a possibility. Okay? It's one of those things that,
Sure.
there's just a lot of unknowns, The 1 cent sales tax generated $72 million for the entire state of West Virginia.
My point exactly.
And that's $72 million that stayed right in their communities to be used for whatever projects the communities needed. Not go to Charleston and then give it back to you in the form of a grant or some program. So it's important for all the cities to maintain this if we possibly can.
Well, let me say again, and because I've heard about this. Now, I understand that the police department is our most needed department, if you will, for funding, and I'm fine with that. I think they should be fully funded. And I'm not advocating any funds go away from them because it's, you got to have a police department, and you got to have a good police department that we have. So, I don't know. I just, we've got to have some kind of closure on this, no matter what it is, because it's just, it's hung around too long, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Is it an option to lower everyone's to what the seniors are paying now? Is that one of our options?
It's an option.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
To keep it, but lower everyone's to what the seniors are paying now. That's an option. Okay.
Yes.
Am I correct, Mayor? I wasn't on council when the home rule came into effect. My understanding is that we did lower the B&O tax in Vienna, and that it's capped. It can't be raised under the home rule program, correct?
Right. But if home rule goes away, then it goes back to the way it was before.
And also my understanding is there is opposition in the legislature to continuing home rule.
Yes, sir.
Correct. And so it's by no means a given that this is going to continue. So I think that goes to, so would the vehicle be, for example, if we lost that $3 million out of our budget, then we'd have to revisit B&O and other revenue sources to replace that. So it seems to me that's a pretty open question we need to consider carefully before we make other revenue decisions, because that's out of our control. And that's my comment on it.
And I think you're right, Jim, but, I want to go back to what the information that Russ had shared with us. I'm concerned. He outlined some options, and I'm concerned that what we're doing may not be the right thing as far as the overall program on the police fee for the citizens. I think we need to figure out what the best option is. Based on we've been advised by counsel on his opinion. Am I saying that right, Russ?
No, it's my opinion. Yeah.
His opinion, which is why we have him.
I don't have the answer for you, I think.
Yes, yes.
The bottom line is, Roger, now that we're aware that there is a problem based on our attorney's opinion, we could ignore this. And then if someone takes us to court, then a judge would be the one to decide if it's legal or not. The other option is that we change it. And so we're going to have to come to some kind of a consensus on how you want to change it, because you made the comment that this has been around long enough. We're going to fix it, all right? Now, we just have to decide how we're going to fix it, and then we'll be back, as Mr. Skog says, in compliance with the law,
Thank you.
in his opinion.
My take on this is this. The ordinance was written in what, 1972? 1970, yeah, so that's how long it's been around. That fee has been collected since that time. The police department has used those funds out of the general fund budget for operating. I am not a fan of reducing revenue sources. I just don't think, I think those are steps backwards when you do away with sources of revenue. I can't see that, I agree with what the attorney's advice is, you know, that there needs to be something amended to the ordinance, but I personally cannot see doing away with the police fee as it is. That's a lot of money, $215,000. It is the greatest budget, functioning budget in the city. I personally know, because I've worked with the police department, I know what's needed for those operations. I know that when those budgets are submitted each year, they're conservatively submitted. It's not a huge wish list. Let's get the finest out there. Right now, we have cruisers that take a lot of maintenance. They're older vehicles. But I don't think this council or any previous council would approve a police department budget, somebody coming in and saying, okay, you know, now we need 6 new cruisers. You know, that's a lot of money too. And I say that because, once again, those police department budgets are conservatively submitted with the idea that you want to keep those costs down. So back to that fee, I can't personally support doing away with it. I understand where some people's concerns are giving back to citizens. I just don't think that that's an area that we need to do it in. If we want to go back to fix the legality of it, as far as what's wrong with the ordinance as it stands now in this day and age, my take is then everybody pay the same price, the $350.
And
that police fee alone. And because you have to factor in those things like home rule. Home rule was sketchy last year. It's even sketchier this year as far as whether it is going to continue in the future or go away. You know, and like the mayor said, or anybody else that knows that revenue coming from home rule, every city is going to majorly suffer, and Deanna will be directly affected by it. So I can't see doing away at the present time, this day and age, with revenue sources. You know, if anything, since 1974, maybe we should look at increasing that police fee. That's what I...
Well, Kathy, I see what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just don't think what we're doing now is right, I guess, is where I'm coming from on it. So...
What, as far as the collection of the fee?
Not the collection of the fee, but the different amounts based on the...
Oh, I don't know.
demographics of our community.
Right. If it is not legal, then I say everybody pays the same. Pays the same.
So you're advocating that we would raise the seniors' rate by nearly $1.50 to
I'd
offset?
say everybody would pay the $350.
I have long been an advocate that we do away with it.
Yeah.
You cannot tell me that we cannot, as a group, cut $215,000 out of our budget. I volunteered and I'll volunteer again. I can do it by myself. Given the opportunity to do that, that's fine. I promise you, I can take $215,000 out of our budget, and this city will never be affected. But for anybody to set up here and to say that we're going to be willing to fix a wrong by increasing the rate that the senior citizens of this city pays, I'm sorry. I think you've got your priorities all messed up. You know, we're talking here about, as I've stated before, it's nothing but scare tactics and innuendo. Chief Piper puts a budget together just like every other department does. When that budget is submitted and approved, it will be funded out of the general fund just like every other department will, with or without that police fee. That's the bottom line.
And, you know, we can look at the pretty charts on the board. Yes, there's $350,000 that if you take $250 away from, we all know that $350,000 is so conservative that it's unbelievable. We just had a carryover that was $850,000, indicative pretty much of the one prior to that. So we're looking at a very conservative number. And we're throwing out the scare tactic of the home rule. Yes, absolutely, it's a pilot program. I just, within the past 2 weeks, sat in a 2-hour meeting with Mike Hall, the chief of staff for the governor of the state, along with some of our legislators. We discussed home rule. I'd say it's highly unlikely that the home rule is going to go away. Could it? Absolutely. But I'd say it's a lot more probable that it's going to go countywide than it goes away in our cities and our municipalities. I mean, you all need to think about what you're talking about. You're talking about in the last 10 years, or I'm sorry, the last 3 years, we've accrued about $10 million plus of excess revenue. And, you know, and we're sitting here talking about having a problem with reducing the police fee. If it was the police fee and that's what it was, that's where the police cruisers came from and that's where the payroll came from, I totally get it. It's police fee on a line item only, nothing else. It goes to the general fund and it is used by every single department. And I'm absolutely convinced that if we keep any portion of this police fund, that it needs to be changed and it needs to be in a fund that goes to Chief Pfeiffer and his people. But I'm still advocating that we just do away with it. $215,000 is such a small portion of our total budget. We take in $3 million a year that we didn't have just a couple short years ago in the home rule. Folks, I mean, this is math. It's just pure and simple math.
We've done a lot of improvements since that time too in the city. If you'll take a look at that as well.
I totally understand, but I would like for you to show me a spreadsheet that shows me where that many millions of dollars have come from. I would like for you to do that for me. Give me a spreadsheet that shows me how much money has been spent on improvements.
I'm not a finance person, but
Mr. Conley, please make your comments and we'll let others.
My comment is I am absolutely in favor of doing away with the police fee, period. And I cannot, in my wildest dreams, believe that anybody up here is advocating that we increase that number for the senior citizens.
You know, we've talked about the current budget of $215,000, which is at, as I understand it, the full rate. If we reduced everyone to that rate that the seniors are paying, another option is we're looking at $110,000. A significant amount of to me, a lower amount that we would have to make up, you know, in our budget process. That's another option.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Okay.
Thank you.
The police fee is something that we allow ourselves the luxury of buying the best safety equipment that we can buy, body armor, all the things that we need in order to keep our policemen safe. We've done lots of things with our police department, and I believe that they're one of the finest departments in the state. And the comments that have been made here tonight, you know, it is $215,000, and that's enough money to buy 6 police cruisers. Okay, and no matter how you look at the spreadsheet or you look at the paperwork, that is the commitment that our citizens have made to our police department. And that money does go to the police department. It is it's like when we had the fire fee. It is the way that our community supports our public safety. And whether the opinion is that it's smoke and mirrors over home rule, that unknown cloud that's hanging over that, next year's budget is going to be so difficult to make, because you will have no idea whether the legislature is going to pass that or not, and we will have to work very hard to come up with a contingency plan if it goes away. And so until we know that factor, it would be my recommendation, it would have been my recommendation to leave this alone until next year when we find out. But unfortunately, now that Mr. Skogstad has pointed out that, in his opinion, that it is illegal, we are going to fix it. So you all need to think, and we will bring it back as an agenda item for a vote of what direction we are going to go with the police fee. We're not going to be able to, we're going to have to work together as a group of people in order to find out what is the best thing to do in order to solve this problem. All right? Moving on this evening, the next item on our discussion is for the 5-year plan. If you will look at the piece of paper that was on your blotter this evening. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I want to go back. The first item on our agenda is the first ordinance on first reading, approving the 2018 replacement pages to the codified ordinances. This is the same thing that we do every year when the Walter Drain Company gathers all the information from the state, the changes that were made to state code. We have to tweak our ordinances in order to match state code. We also have to add in all of the things that we voted on as a group by ordinance to change our ordinance book. So I'm going to read this as it is. This is an ordinance to approve the 2018 replacement pages to the codified ordinances. Whereas certain provisions within the codified ordinances should be amended to conform with current state law, and whereas various ordinances of a general and permanent nature have been passed by council, which should be included in the codified ordinances, and whereas council has heretofore entered into a contract with the Walter H. Drain Company to prepare and publish such revision which is before council. Now therefore be it ordained by the Common Council of the City of Vienna that Section 1, the ordinances of the City of Vienna, West Virginia, of a general and permanent nature as revised, recodified, rearranged, and consolidated into component codes, chapters, articles, and sections within the 2018 replacement pages to the codified ordinances are hereby approved and adopted. Section 2. The following sections and articles are hereby added, amended, or repealed as respectfully indicated in order to comply with current state law. 331.01, crashes involving deaths or personal injuries. These are under the traffic code section. That is amended. 33501, maximum speed limits, and that is amended. 345.26, safety glass in motor vehicles, that is repealed. 349.01, unattended motor vehicle, is repealed. Under Part 5, under the General Offenses Code, 525.05, tobacco usage restrictions, that has been amended. 545.05, possession of deadly weapon by minors, prohibited, that has been amended. Under Section 3, pursuant to West Virginia Code 8-11-4, Section B, notice of the proposed adoption of the current replacement pages to the city code shall be given by publication as provided in West Virginia Code 8-11-4, subsection A, paragraph 2. B, through authentication of this ordinance, the mayor shall certify the current replacement pages to the city code, which shall be filed as a permanent record in the office of the city clerk. This ordinance shall take effect immediately upon passage, which requires 2 readings. I'll entertain a motion on first reading for the approval of the ordinance to approve the 2018 replacement pages to the codified ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve on first reading the ordinance to approve the 2018 replacement pages to the codified ordinances. Mr. Skogstad, I know that you have reviewed these. Do they meet your approval?
They do. I'll have the rest of them finished. To the extent that I've reviewed them, yes, I'll have them finished before the next council meeting to provide any proposed changes or corrections.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? I'll call for the question. All those in favor on first reading of an ordinance to approve the 2018 replacement pages to the codified ordinances, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed? Motion carries on first reading. It will be on our next council meeting agenda for second reading. Now, I'll go back to the other item of discussion. I apologize for getting out of place. On your table this evening, you should have a updated draft of the 5-year plan. This is a continuation of the 5-year plan that we started in 2013. Most of the projects that were submitted have been completed. There's a couple of them that continue on because they're ongoing items. As you look through these items on the draft, you will notice that in the third quarter of this year, we have a stormwater report that we will complete. You will note that we've done smoke testing on sewers, and the design of the Phase 1 sidewalk project, which is the beautification project on Grand Central Avenue, is ongoing. The design of wells 7 and 8 for the addition of the carbon filters is beginning. In the fourth quarter, we will continue on with the improvements to wells 7 and 8, and we will continue to work on our sewer televising project so that we can find where the inflow and infiltration of stormwater is getting into our sewer system. We will get a report from the smoke testing that was done, highlighting the areas that were found in that project. Also in there are the paving projects, which we continue on every year. You'll notice every year that this thing is projected out to 2023. That paving projects are part of this. As you read on through this, this is the same 5-year plan that will be submitted to the utility board for water and sewer upgrades. This particular one includes all of the infrastructure, including paving projects, bridge repairs, things like that. The cost for the last bridge that we replaced, which was 28th Street, was $1 million. And so by doing this 5-year plan, we're going to try to project out the next bridge that we need to replace. We just cannot take $1 million out of our budget without planning ahead. And so as you look through the things that are on there, you will see bridge projects that are listed on this. And as we go on, you'll notice in the year 2020 that there is wells 9 and 10 for improvements. We are going to rehab both of those wells and pull them up and clean them and do whatever maintenance needs to be done on that. There is a water and sewer extension to the Spencer's Landing property. There is no water across the railroad tracks, and so the people in the Minniebell area have not had city water, and so we're going to run water and sewer underneath the railroad tracks and have that option there if they care to join us. We've identified 4 areas that are to be considered for drainage issues. Obviously, the area at 48th Street and 8th Avenue that we've talked about several times, that's a priority there because that low spot right there continues to flood houses in that area. The 19th Street area, and Rick, I'm sorry, what avenue do you live on? 9th Avenue. 9th Avenue and 19th Street continues to be a major issue there. The 41st Street area between 7th Avenue and 8th Avenue, where Vienna School is a major issue. And the area down behind 6th and 7th Street, the area that you refer to, Mike, that is an area there that we have sewer lines in there. We're going to put that on as an area to be considered for upgrading that. All right. Now, as I present all of these things to you, you have to understand this is a draft. The reason why it is being given to you is for your suggestions of projects that you would like to see included in the 5-year plan. Some of the things that we have completed, we started this thing in 2013, and I went back through my book to see the projects that were suggested. Councilman Bibby, his list of things were improvements to fire trucks and upgrading the safety equipment for the fire department, and reviewing these with Chief Scholl. We just last week approved the rehab of one of our $1 million tower trucks. That was one of the items that Mr. Bibby put in this thing. And so we are making progress on the things that were in there. There are other things that I think that the community would like us to do that need some serious consideration. There are some things that are out of our control, so we're going to try to work with state agencies. The repaving of Grand Central Avenue is something that we need to get on the state of West Virginia's radar. Grand Central Avenue between 28th Street, one lane of that is getting pretty beat up, and so we need to try to get with them and see if we can get in the schedule to get that done. There's very little we can do because it is a state highway, but I do believe that's a priority for the community.
You're talking about 28th Street South, left-bound lane?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please do.
And
that's terrible.
So anyway, as you look down through these projects that are in here, you will see some of these projects that are listed in there. The design of the 46th Street sewer extension. That was one of the things that was in the rate increase, but we have not generated enough money through the rate increase. It's going to take at least 3 years to get those numbers where they need to be. But we will start working on those projects as we get closer. We have had engineering studies done on the bridges. The state of West Virginia comes in and inspects them on an annual basis, or 2 years, Craig? 2 years. Every 2 years they come in. And so we've got some issues with our bridges that we need to take a look at. And so that's a major issue right there because, we'll have to deal with that. The other thing that I believe that the community that we've talked about numerous times is a community building. When you start developing long-range plans, I believe that that's one of the things that our community would like is something. Whether or not we can do it or not, I have no idea. And obviously, until next year when the financial cloud lifts, we have no idea if we'll be able to do any of these projects. But you have to plan ahead. And so we've done not only a 10-year plan, but we've done 2 5-year plans now. And if you all would take the time to review these, and if you have any suggestions or projects that you would like to see done, it's amazing. The 46th Street sewer extension will actually eliminate 3 lift stations. By doing that, we reduced the maintenance cost on 3, and so that's a cost savings for the city annually. So some of these projects will save us money in the long run, so that's what we need to look at. Questions or comments on the 5-year plan? All right, take a time to digest it. We will be discussing this for the next few council meetings, and then we will discuss it at the utility board and see what kind of plans that they have, and then we'll try to put this thing in a more solid form and not be a draft.
Mayor, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to see any other departments' 5-year plan moving forward through 2023?
What are you referring to, Roger?
Well, this pretty much looks like Public Works.
Well, with the exception of the paving projects and the bridges, okay? But that's the reason why you have it in front of you. That is where you need to be the liaison for the fire department and say this is
Because it
the project
exists.
we would like to have
I
included.
mean,
in
that
it.
plan exists.
Oh, I got it.
Okay, all right.
I've got it right here. But yeah, as I said, you just need to update it because we've already moved forward on some of those projects. And, you know, we need some guidance
Gotcha,
as
thank
a
you.
council.
Thank you.
I have the 5-year plan from the IT department. I have the 5-year plan from the fire department. I have the 5-year plan from the police department. And Chief Pfeiffer, we will have to review this and update it as you need it. And then I have the 5-year plan from the Parks Department, and because we have a new Parks Director, Steve will have to review that.
Okay, all right.
And see what direction we need to go with the parks, but.
Okay.
I've got 5-year plans for everybody.
Okay.
It depends. You all are the group, we are the group that make the decisions as to how we're going to spend the money. So, you need to bring it back with whatever ideas that you would like to see done, okay? But that's where we are, and, any other comments? All right, then we move on to council comments.
Remember, you're talking about this home rule money going away. Are we doing anything proactively now to put a freeze on spending, or are we kind of cutting back on some things, or we just kind of, what are we doing right now? I mean, we're 6 months away, 8 months away from getting a decision. What are we doing actively now? Is there anything we're doing specifically, or is kind of?
Well, you know that in this budget that we approved, there was almost no equipment bought.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're reducing our debt ratio because we're not financing anything, all right? We have the rate increase that went into effect for the water and sewer, which should improve our bond rating and get our bond ratio back where it needs to be, okay? We are diligently working on this every day. This is probably the biggest issue that the finance department is working on. And from the city standpoint, we're working very closely with the Municipal League and all the other cities in the state of West Virginia to hopefully put forth a plan that will be accepted by the state legislature. So, yes, it's a concern, Mike.
Mayor, and Councilman Leach, this has to do with the Manville project. Has the work being done by Mr. Rebar and Mr. Hancock with the remediation action plan based on the current DEP standards or the new standards being proposed by the DEP?
Well, there's a lot of standards, so you might need to be a little more specific, but with respect to the way the DEP works, when you're talking about action levels on any constituent of concern, I think those were most recently updated in 2017, and those are moving targets. So if they raise a guideline, even if you've closed a site, so for example, if you close a site at a certain level that was acceptable at the time, and then the DEP next year changes that level, then they can cause you to reopen and meet that guideline, which is very similar to what happened with the CA guidelines and why Chemours came and put in the filters. So I don't know what standard you're referring to, but we are meeting current standards. And in fact, with the Riverside parcel, that's very specifically what we're doing. We're preparing the public comment period for that to be reviewed and submitted. And the West Virginia DEP also has a new risk assessor, and he was on a phone conference and made that very point that you know, there's no favors being done for the city. We are in compliance with their standards. So if there's a specific one, I'm happy to look into it. But
well, actually, there's several, and what made me ask you the question, this is something that I was just given today, actually, and it's from the DEP. It says the DEP has proposed major changes to human health water quality criteria that will affect NPDES permit levels and perhaps remediation approvals. And it goes into a list of several potential contaminants of concern that they are indeed proposing raising the levels on. There are some that right now is not listed as a potential contaminant of concern that will be if the proposal goes through. And as I look
I don't mean, if you're talking about NPDES, National Pollution Elimination Discharge System, that is a point source discharge that's related, for example, to what DuPont or a sewer system discharges into public waters of the United States, which is also very specifically defined. So nothing that's going on in Manville requires or involves NPDES standards. That's a completely different thing. What we're talking about in Manville is groundwater, if you've got something with respect. You know, and Roger, as far as if you got stuff like this coming up, I appreciate seeing it in advance. I mean, I can't sit here and respond to, like, you've got a chart there with 65 lines.
This is brand new to me.
Okay.
But at the same time, there is about, and I'll email this to you tomorrow.
Okay.
There's about 10 different items that is listed here that is going to be potential changes that the DEP is asking about. And without having a lot of time to really delve into it, I immediately was able to find 6 of them that is identified as being substantially reduced that is on the list of the concerns at Manville, and we're already above the acceptable level.
Number one, like I say, if you're talking about the NPDES standards, that does not apply to Manville. Manville, we're talking about groundwater that's 48 feet to 28 feet below the surface. That is point source discharge into the waters of the United States. It's a completely different thing. So I'm happy to look at it. I mean, I'm just shooting from the hip here, but you mentioned NPDES, and I know what that is. And that, like I said, National Pollution Elimination and Discharge System. In other words,
Absolutely.
We're discharging, okay? Groundwater from Manville is not going to be discharged. In fact, you're not even permitted, which you're not already by city ordinance in Vienna, to, to drill a well. But that's the, again, it keeps coming back to what we keep talking about, our exposure pathways. And that's why they're changing those standards, because there are exposure pathways, because it's going in the river or other sources of water, Palm Creek or whatever. So that, I'm happy to look at it, but that's what I can tell you about what you've said. I've got a couple, is that everything? I got a couple of comments. Something that goes back, and I just noticed this. There's a recent decision in the Supreme Court. It was South Dakota versus Wayfair, and it had to do with entities that do not have a physical presence in the state, remitting sales tax to states and municipalities. So it's not exactly internet sales, but the point is that this has been a decision a long time coming that says you need to level the playing field with respect to the collection of retail sales tax. So, for example, people buy things on the internet and they don't have to buy sales tax, but if you go down to one of our local businesses, you do. And so this Supreme Court decision is leveling that playing field. Now, municipalities and cities have to react and take action. But that is an opportunity for not just Vienna, but all state and local entities who are disadvantaged by, and our retailers, by having to collect sales tax, remit those, and then these out-of-state retailers do not have to do that, and they get that unfair competitive advantage. So that's something that also is in the, and in fact, this was documented. I'd read about the case elsewhere, but in the Municipal League newsletter, I think that we all got. So, that may provide some hope for, all these issues we're talking about revenue streams that are additional options that are not going to penalize or cost our citizens more. Well, I guess if you buy online, you got to pay sales tax, but that's it's an unfair advantage in my view. The other thing, and this is the main thing I was looking at this, there is in the back of this Municipal League, and it's entitled Top 10 Best Practices for Newly Elected Officials. And I would like to be placed on the agenda for a resolution to be considered by council adopting these best practices, not just for newly elected, but it is a good roadmap and a good guide for how we should conduct ourselves, in my view. And I read it and realized there are some things that I could be doing better. I tried to find this on the website and distribute it, but it's not on the website. It was just in my newsletter. So Adam, I don't know if we could get a copy of this and circulate it, but I would like this placed on an agenda for a resolution to be considered by council as a best practice guide for our council activities, because I think it's very well written.
Okay. Adam, I can take care of that. All right.
Before we end, PHS is up 21-17 over Morgantown in the second quarter, so that's my contribution.
I have 3 announcements that I'd like to make for this evening. The First Responders Back to School Bash will be held on Saturday, August the 25th at Spencer's Park from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. It is to recognize policemen, firemen, and EMS. I believe there are 24 vendors that are there that are informational to share things about that and to celebrate all the hard work that our first responders do. So 1 to 4 in Spencer Park. The next council meeting will be a regular council session on September the 13th at 7 p.m. The last thing is the Zumba Under the Stars is Friday the 24th from 7 to 9 in the pool parking lot for anyone that would like to participate in that. So, nothing else? Meeting adjourned.
Sitting there humming. Oh, I know, I was sitting there humming and waiting for them to end the meeting. Good work. I've got to wait. And then, where are you going? Bye.